Hey guys, Horrorman back for another review. So today we're going to go ahead and take a look at the brand new NECA Toys Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors Freddy Krueger. Now this is the second Ultimate Freddy Krueger figure that NECA's put out, and you can see it comes in that same great deluxe box packaging as we're kind of used to seeing at this point. You see the original movie poster for the movie, which I really like that they put those on there. On the side, it says Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors, and you got a little close-up of the chest piece that he comes with. The other side's the same. And then on the back, you have a bunch of different pictures of scenes from the movie, but they've actually used the actual figure instead, which is awesome. And then if you want to pause it right there, there's just a little brief story of Nightmare on Elm Street 3. And just like all their other packaging, if you just open this here, you have a nice little Velcro piece on both sides, so you can open that and seal it. You have a really cool picture of him on this side with a funky red lighting, kind of simulates the furnace look, and then you can see the figure clearly displayed here. This one borrows from many of the older release figures, and they incorporate some newer tooling such as more articulation, and they do some little bit different paint apps. So let's go ahead and take this out of the packaging and get a closer look. Alright, so here's Freddy out of the packaging, and he looks pretty damn menacing. So before we get too farther, let's go ahead and take a close-up of the head sculpt. Alright, so here's Freddy's head sculpt a little bit closer up, and of course the hat is removable as usual, and it does look like you can use other hats from past Freddy's if you want a little bit different hat for him. But the head sculpt's really cool on here. You can see he's got more of like a grimace to him. You know, he's got that sinister smile, which I really like. Love the paint apps on this. You see a lot of breakup between the different burn and flesh tones in here. So yeah, all around I think this is really well done. You can see the same has been applied to the neck to really blend in here. But all in all, I think they've done a really good job of capturing the likeness of Robert Englund and Freddy Krueger in this head sculpt. Now, of course, there is a second head sculpt that comes with this. So I'll go ahead and show you how to change that. So you just want to go ahead and grab that head sculpt as best you can. And it might take a little bit of force, and it should pop off. And then you have the other head sculpt here. And you're just going to put that right on. And it's always a little bit easier to put these on than it is to take them off. And there's the second head sculpt, and this is a crazy looking sculpt. Now, of course, I don't want to ruin the scene, but they do attempt to use a cross on Freddy at some point, and it gets a little bit burned into his head. But I really like the mouth expression on this, and again, the burn and flesh tones are really cool on here. I think I actually might like this head sculpt better. What's nice too is, of course, you could put the hat on that head sculpt and really give you a kind of a screaming Freddy look. So I think this looks pretty cool. What's really cool with this cross is they actually put this little clear piece on the back of his head sculpt. So if you were to introduce a light source or any kind of light comes behind that source, you could see that it almost looks like there's a burn into his head. So aside from the head sculpts, the rest of the details really good in here. You can see the textured pattern into the the sweater. You can see some tattered and torn edges, especially at the bottom and at the sleeves and the arms. And then of course you have his signature claw. Now this could be straightened just a little bit, but honestly out of the box it's really not that bad. It just got like maybe a little bit of a bend or a warp on this claw, but they're rubber blades, so I'd rather take that over the hard blades, which can break kind of easily at times. And then you can see on the back, of course, he's got more of those worn edges on here. Now, one thing noting on the top of this shirt is there is a fairly big seam, and that's because this actual chest has an interchangeable piece You only really see it from the top, but from the front it really looks fine, and honestly even from the side you don't really see much. And then the pants just have like a little bit of like a bagginess to them, which is kind of cool. You can see they kind of like tighten up around the boots, and then the actual boots are really well done too. You can see they got like a nice leather kind of grain texture to them, and then you can see the sole has little like teeth. So yeah, all in all, the details on this figure are really well done, which is kind of like NECA's standard. Like the details on these horror figures in particular have always been really well done. So Freddy comes with a ton of really cool accessories, and again, a lot of these were packaged in various Freddy figures that have come before this. So of course you do get the famous fedora hat and the different head sculpts. But you also get some really cool little accessories here. You can see the house. It's basically made out of popsicle sticks from one of the main characters of the movie, and it's supposed to look just like a little mini version of the house. So it's really cool though. If you look at real closely, you can kind of see a lot of that popsicle stick pattern in here, which is really cool. And then you can see all the details on the door. You can kind of see everything's boarded up. Funny, the side of the house kind of looks like the Amityville Horror. But yeah, it's really cool looking. And the sculpt is really nicely done. It's a bit of like a harder plastic. You also get the marionette, which again, we've seen this in the past, but this version actually features articulation, which is really cool. You can turn his head, you can turn both of the arms, and there's a little bit of leg movement, but unfortunately there isn't enough because he doesn't really stand too well. He does come with this little blood stain like stand here, and it just goes in that little peg hole. So you might be able to peg this in another stand, but he doesn't really stand too well on his own. But the detail is really good in here. I mean, you can even, as small as this is, you can see all the sculpted detail in little marionette Freddy here. And you also get this interchangeable syringe hand, and again, he uses this in one of the kills, but you can see it's basically the same as the gloved hand, but instead of the knives, you get these little syringes. And to go with that same hand, you also get an interchangeable regular hand that has syringes in the fingers. So you can kind of put both of these on him. The last accessory is probably my favorite piece that he comes with, and it's of course the chest of souls, and you can see all these people, kind of like trying to come through Freddy's chest. If you remember some of the more famous scenes of the later Freddys, he'll always show his chest at some point, and pretty gruesome part where you can see all the like kids trying to like get their way out of his chest. So I'm glad they came, glad he came with this, and I really like how like the shirt's kind of torn open, and you can see it kind of just hanging on the side here. But the overall detail in here is so good. Again, you have these seams at the top of the figure here, and what you're gonna do is you can just pop it off right at those seams, and then you can see he's got this, hollowed out stomach here. And then you just want to take these, and you can see all the little pegs on this side and then the different holes here. And you're just going to match those up. And then the chest goes on there. Changing the hands is pretty easy. If you want to go ahead and put those syringe hands on here, it shouldn't be too hard. You just want to grip that hand as best you can, pull it off, and then you can see the hole here. And then the peg is left into the regular arm. And then you're just going to go ahead and pop that on. Once you get it on there, you have the syringe hand. You could do the same with the other hand and just kind of pop this off, which the glove kind of comes off a little bit easier. Had a little bit of struggle with the syringe regular hand. But once you have both those done, now you have Freddy with both these syringe hands. And just in case you were wondering, you can use the interchangeable heads from the original Ultimate Freddy if you want, just in case you want to kind of switch it up. But unfortunately, the neck is not quite the same color as those face sculpts. so they're not gonna fit perfectly on here. But I mean, if you kind of just put the hat on, you won't notice quite as much. But yeah, the neck and just the overall paint scheme is definitely different on this version. The thing I really love about these Ultimate figures is they've kind of gone back and fixed some of those articulation problems that some of the original figures had, and you can finally get him in a much better pose instead of the stagnant pose that the originals had. So just going over the articulation, the head turns freely. You can get a lot of movement on here actually. He can even look up pretty far, and then he can look down, and then you can even pivot the head to give him a little bit more expression or character. The arms can go out about that far, so pretty wide. So I like that. They can go down all the way, and then of course you have the elbow cut. I do wish they had a double hinge on the elbow. I don't know if they'll ever do that on these Freddy Krueger figures, but I feel like with an arm or like the hand weapon he has, it would really benefit him to have that elbow, double elbow articulation, but he does not have it. You can move the wrist pretty good with the turn, and then he can kind of go up and down just a little bit. The waist does move pretty good, and you can crunch a little bit, not too much. And then you get the same articulation, of course, with the other arm. The leg will go fairly decently far out. You have the knee articulation, and then you can get a little bit of movement out of these boots. Really not much, but they do move. And then both legs can do a decent split. Okay, so for the first comparison, here is both the Ultimate Freddys. Now you have the Part 1 Freddy and then the Part 3 Dream Warriors Freddy. And of course, the biggest thing people are going to notice here is there's definitely a height difference here. Now there's also a boot difference, which could make up some of that height difference. But yeah, the height's definitely a little bit weird here. And here he is next to the remake version of Freddy. And here he is next to the Part 3 Jason figure, which luckily Jason is still a good bit taller as he should be. And here he is versus the Ash Williams figure, and this is from the Ash vs. Evil Dead TV show. And I've already kind of mentioned that those Ash vs. Evil Dead figures are a little bit smaller than NECA's usual 7-inch scale. So these, again, don't quite match up right. Here he is next to the Black Panther 6-inch Marvel Legends figure. And for the last comparison, here he is next to the NECA Part 2 Mego Retro style version. And you can see these are in more of an 8-inch figure scale. Alright, so that's my review. Overall, I'm very happy with the way this came out. In terms of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, I'm definitely more partial to the first one, as many people are. But in terms of figures, I think this is definitely the best one so far. I really like the interchangeable chest. I think the accessories are very well thought out. Matter of fact, most of these, if not all of them, represent a kill from the movie. So I think that's a nice touch, and it shows that NECA's done their homework with watching these movies before they make these figures. I think the popsicle pattern in this house was so well done. The fact that you can actually tell it looks like popsicle sticks is a huge win. You know, adding articulation to this little mini marionette I think was a really nice touch. I do kind of wish that the stand worked better. I feel like there's no point of having a stand if it doesn't really function. It would have been really cool if we would have got the skeletal remains of Freddy. If you've seen this movie before, you actually do get to see Freddy's skeleton in part of this. But I think that the tooling for that one would be probably a bit much. So maybe down the road we'll see it in some pack-in or maybe a diorama or something like that. But I think it would have been a pretty wild accessory. Thanks for watching my review. Please leave a comment, subscribe. If you have a question, go ahead and ask one. And until next time, guys, see ya.